Hi, and welcome to lecture 5, which is about voice interfaces in the UX design prototyping course given by the Technical University of Denmark. So, voice. Voice is the new black. Voice is the main way we're going to interact with all sorts of things, at least according to the technology trends. When you look at what Microsoft or Amazon, Google, Apple, what they're doing at the moment is really providing these different ways of being able to talk to devices. And these devices could be like in the Amazon thing here, where Amazon's business model is, of course, that you should order all sorts of things from Amazon.com. So you can imagine that the idea is very much that, I'm out of this item here, and then it says, okay, I'll order it for you, and you go, oh, thanks, and then beep bong, there will be this guy with a package at the door, and that's all very, very smooth. Google is into the same thing now with some of their homebound devices. I guess this also goes into their smart home or ideas. Whereas I think what has been up to now has mainly been the mobile aspects of Google Now, which has a really great sense of natural language processing and understanding what you're saying and acting upon it, similar to what you have with the Apple iOS Siri assistant. Maybe the difference is that the Google is more fact-like. But it's also very practical. You ask Google for something, let's say a gas station, and it will show you a map with a number of choices, and you pick those, or it will ask for some conversion and it will give you the number, but also a little pocket calculator below in the card-based design. Whereas Apple is going for this personalized. I wouldn't say it's as far as in the movie Her, but there is this thing that Siri has a voice which has an attitude. And so there are clearly these aspects similar to what we talked about earlier with emotional design, that you want to create this sort of attachment to something. And now if you can talk to your devices all the time, this is clearly something which has a completely different feel than sitting and tapping on a screen. So what is really, I think, different now is that with iOS 10, Siri can also now interact with the new little AirPods, as they're called, which are going to be released in October. And I provided a link to a little blog post by a guy saying, these are not headphones, these are Apple's first implant. Because the idea is that if you don't lose them, if they don't fall off, or if you don't need to charge them, they will just stay in, because it will be so nice that you can just sort of talk to your interface all the time, and that this will become like an extension of yourself. The other thing is that Siri, which has been working with Apple's own apps in the iOS, is now opened up for third-party developers. So this means that you can go in and Siri enable your app and have it do all sorts of things. So when you look at these devices, then think of the Oticon Open as a very, very much more advanced version of the Apple AirPods, because similar to the AirPods, it has mics, not just one microphone, but actually two in each ear. I don't know if you can see there's something here which is pointing forwards, and there's something in the back. So it gives you this 360-degree sound picture. Also here, they not just like the AirPods connect to the phone via Bluetooth, but they also have an internal connection, which means that one ear knows what the other hears. So it gives a completely different spatial resolution, or at least possibility for do all sorts of things. And maybe even more important, what happens before amplification here is, of course, a lot of signal processing, which goes in and analyzes the whole sound environment. And that means that these little things here, they know what sound sources are around you. And so if you refer to something or it's a little confused about what's being said, this has much better, let's say, possibilities for figuring out what is the context, because you have this very, very detailed auditory image of what's going on. So if you would think of the Oticon Open as a basis now for creating an auditory interface, then you would think, okay, what are the use cases? And the obvious use cases as they've been up to now, at least with the Siri, has been the things you see down here, which could be the aspects of staying in touch. So again, this emotional design aspect of the people who mean something to you, you want to reach them really quickly. How can you do this? Just by referring to them, and in this case here, Siri has the potential to get smarter. You can actually teach Siri that this guy is my brother, so you can refer to him as that instead of a name. Or let's say the name is mispronounced, and this will sound totally ludicrous, right? If it's your name and Siri tries to pronounce your name in a completely strange way, that's something you can also teach her, that she shouldn't do this. It could be things which are more like productivity, getting things done. So check this thing off on the calendar or the reminders or whatever. These are the typical cases, I would say. That's what we've seen a lot of, people using Siri as an alarm, because if you are cooking or doing something with both hands, it's much easier to talk to Siri and do things than maybe start to set the timer. It could also be the remote control aspects, and we've earlier talked about, let's say, what are the use cases for the watch, and the watch has these remote control aspects also, which I find immensely helpful. And you could think of Siri as just an extension on top of this for picking music or changing stuff. You could have the things which is more like the navigation. So again, you're in a car or on a bike or something like this. You don't have your hands available, and you can talk and you can get directions. Or it might be things where you would have other questions. It could also be like more types of facts, where essentially what you do, instead of going in and selecting a song or finding the route to a place, it could be that you have a specific question in mind which you want an answer to, and Siri can provide this, whether it has to do with stock quotes or it has to do with maybe visualizing something for you. So when you think of this new possibility for actually as a third-party developer have your app access Siri, what that means is that it's been opened up in the first run for a couple of domains. So that's what it has been restricted for here. It's been restricted to let's say, car hailing apps or things which has to do with messaging. It could be other stuff like photos, or things where you don't want to go through all these things, but you should think of here, okay, if we would have another domain for this augmented hearing thing, what would be the typical cases? And I guess you would think of what is it that you do right now, and how could we Siri enable that? That could be the first step. And the second step could be, okay, once we are beyond, this is what you can do now, which is essentially translating what you would do by touching an interface. What is it we would actually like to be able to do if we have this sort of continuous auditory interface to the environment to whom we are with, and providing this sort of layered sound experience. So I picked these examples here from a video which I recommend, which is on the Siri kit done by Apple for their developer conference in the summer of 2016. So they're just going through all the things here by saying, what does it mean to create an auditory interface like this? And what it means is that you would need to have some sort of language input, so that's speech, so you would be able to make out the sounds. Then the more important part is, okay, what is the intent? What is it that this voice wants? And then you have some ways to say, okay, we have to translate that into some actions and responses in consequence to this. So this takes an understanding of the vocabulary. So this means that you could rely on Siri as a third-party developer to understand, in general, a number of things, because things could be presented in multiple ways, right? So it's not rule-based, or it's not something where look for this phrase, but it would be a lot of things where does this word occur in this context, and really advanced artificial intelligence, natural language processing. This is not what your app should do. What your app should do is figuring out how can we use this. So there will be some specific additions to the vocabulary. I want Siri also to understand these words here if necessary, and the context. And then you would have something where you go in and you actually act upon this, which is what is the logic of the app, and it might be also that the response takes something which is not just a voice, but maybe there are some user interface extension, like something showing up on the watch, on the phone, or whatever. So this is all about, let's say, speaking the language of Siri. So you will need to say, the first part here is you have this sort of resolve step. And this means that Siri will have to figure out what on earth is it that you intend to do. Then, depending on what that is, there might be something where she wants to confirm this. So do you really want to do that? And that's like sort of an intermediate step, or it could also be that it's just a dialogue-based thing. So some of the questions, so think of it as a dialogue, would be just to confirm, that is really what you want. And then you have the response. And they had this example here in the video where they had this unicorn message app, which can also do payment transfer. And you could see there would be something like this where you will say, transfer $85 to Buttercups for rainbow polish, or whatever it is. And in this case, Siri would need to figure out who's the recipient of this. So Buttercups, who on earth is she? And look at the context. And at 85 she will get, what a box. Okay, so we need to translate these into dollars. And maybe there should be a little added comment to the payment that this has to do with rainbow polish, or whatever it is they want. So just a simple thing like this takes a lot of resolving as the first step before you do something. And then you could see here, this is an example of the confirmation thing. Is that really what you want to do? Now, if you said transfer $85,000 to, she would first of all be happy, but secondly, this would give you a chance of, no, that's not what I meant. I said 85, not, So depending on how serious the consequences is of what you ask for, you want to delete this file, this might be a good intermediate step. And then I think it's really all boils down to Siri has this natural language understanding, so all the things you see here are the same thing expressed in different ways. So she will get that with the added vocabulary you give her in terms of what you need for your app. And then I think the main idea for you here would be to say, if we start to think of this now as a auditory interface, so you think of having little microphones listening for something, you have the ways to put the feedback in here through the loudspeaker, and you have a way to do this in a very sort of create a sound experience which has this sort of layers of sound. What is on top? Should there be something in the background, and what's going on? Then you could say, we started out by talking about having these things as complementary designs. We have a watch, we have a phone, something you want to do which has to involve more complex stuff you want to do on your phone still. It might be very easy to tap the watch just to confirm something, but it's very unpractical to input something using your watch, right? So the microphones would be wonderful for inputting things, provided that Siri understands what it is you want to do. And then what you would have would be this sort of augmented hearing thing, what would you want augmented hearing for? And I think I would go back to the original use cases for Siri, which would be these things like staying in touch, the productivity, getting things done or getting around, the navigational stuff. All these things are very practical. So maybe you could start out with saying, what are the things you would normally need to press to do something? Let's say if you have an Oticon app, and you could do this with a voice instead. But after that, I would try and really make sort of a jump and say, okay, that takes care of the basics, but the real fantastic thing is that we have microphones here which can pick up and understand what's being said, and you have ways to convey this again by using the speakers, using text-to-speech and so on. So what are the things you really want to do here? And to do that, we add another tool, because in lean prototyping it's great having the mock-ups, and it's even better before the mock-ups to have what we talked about last time in user story mapping, a way of having hierarchical models of user needs and these activities which support these and the tasks which go on underneath, right? But something like this, where most of what's going on is actually happening between the screens, then we need something like micro interactions. So that's why you could use the pop tool to create your wireframes, but your wireframes will be in a storyboard. And in the storyboard, you would have micro interactions, which means little like flow diagram things which will connect the wireframes, and they will be related to micro interactions like what triggers this. It could be a word, the understanding of a phrase or something like this. What is the action which is to be taken? And then are there some sort of logic to this, sort of breakpoints with different modes, or are there some sort of looping thing going on, and then you go to the next thing. So the whole logic mapped out in wireframes, illustrating what's going on, and all the things which goes on in between the wireframes, which means the whole app logic, given that your app supports IFTTT, it knows that it has a phone at the other end, it can ask about things with internet connectivity and so on. It has a watch if it needs to do something really quick, but try and get this really seamless experience of what would it be like to provide augmented hearing as a new type of voice interaction.